good. So, hi guys, my name is Megan. I got to intern for BRDC this past summer. And like you said, I'm currently a junior, about to be senior at App State, and I study environmental science and geology. And this semester, we were assigned a presentation that we got to research the entire semester, and we actually presented it to our department over Zoom. And I weaseled my way into getting the Konnarock Formation due to having living there this summer. It's just really fun to get to research and learn more about. And so I'm getting to tell you guys more about that today. So I'm going to share my screen with you real fast. Hopefully all is well. Okay, can you see what I see?
We can.
Awesome. Okay, so here's my research poster on the Konnarock. So the Konnarock Formation, as we know, is located in Southwest Virginia. It was actually renamed by D.W. Rankin, who is actually the man who named our science building at App State in 1993 due to, he recognized the difference between its underlying formation, the Mount Rogers Formation, and the Konnarock Formation, with the Konnarock being primary sedimentary and the Mount Rogers being a primary igneous unit. So here's a map to kind of give a little bit of context. So it's located in Virginia as well as in areas in North Carolina and Tennessee. This is a geologic map that I got to modify. As we see right here, this is its underlying unit, the Mount Rogers Volcanic Center, or the Mount Rogers Formation. The Konnarock is right here in the dark blue. And the Chilhowie, which is the unit that lays beside it, not overlaying it, but beside it, is in light blue right here, just to get a little bit more context. So with the mineralogy and lithology of the unit, so the Konnarock primarily includes maroon diamictite or glacial tillite, a rhythmite, which is basically layers in repeated fashion, polylithic pebble conglomerates, and laminated siltstone and arcosic sandstone. And so if we look right here, this is an example of a dropstone from the below formations in the Konnarock. And here's an example of the interbedded arcosic sandstone and siltstone, with the pencil pointing towards arcosic sandstone. So a mentionable feature of the Konnarock Formation is the dropstones, like we were saying right here. And we definitely talked about that a lot in my class. It's one of the most mentionable and notable features of the unit. The Konnarock Formation is an upwards of 1,000 meters in thickness in areas. And so if we go down to here, this is a stratigraphic column of formations that overlie and underlie the Konnarock Formation. As we can see, there are unconformities present, which basically tell us that there are gaps in time present in between the formations below and above the Konnarock Formation. And here's the Mount Rogers Formation, and what overlies that is the Unicorn Formation, followed by the Hampton and the Irwin Formations. Beside it, we can see examples of some outcrops that you guys might see from your drive from Konnarock to Chilhowie. There's an example of an outcrop with the Mount Rogers in the Konnarock Formation, and then an example of a rhyolite dropstone from the underlying Mount Rogers Formation that is interbedded in the Konnarock Formation, and then an example from a highway outcrop with the Unicorn Formation in the underlying Konnarock Formation. To go and talk about the exact mineralogy of, or stratigraphy of the Konnarock Formation, we can see the unconformity on top with the diamictite or the glacial tillite, the rhythmite with dropstones, arcosic turbidites, and rhythmites that are present. So the exact depositional age of the Konnarock is very loosely constrained, which I found really interesting. It's actually, we have about a window of 200 million years, which is a long time. So basically our constraints are the Mount Rogers Formation, which was around 700 million years ago, and then the Unicorn Formation, which was around 500 million years ago. We do know that it took place within the Neoproterozoic era, so that's a constraint of 1,000 to 50 million years ago, towards the end of the mountain building events, towards the end of Laurentia. And so another thing that ties with that is the arcosic turbidites. From the arcosic turbidites, we know that the Konnarock Formation was deposited during a mountain building event during Laurentia, which is pretty interesting. The formation of the Konnarock was a depositional environment of a calm glacial lake. When we say like it had a glacial formation environment, that could mean a range of things. But we do know that from its like presence of dropstones, that it was formed in a calm glacial lake environment, with the probable situation being giant glaciers that formed on top of elevated surfaces, such as like Mount Rogers, came down, and as they were coming down, dragged up underlying rock from underlying units, such as the Mount Rogers unit and cranberry gneiss, which is another basal unit, picked it up into the glacier, dragged it over the calm glacial lake, and then as the glacier began to melt, the stones then dropped out, thus forming drop stones, and were preserved in the fine-grained sediment below our Konnarock sandstone and siltstone. So as we go over here, so the Konnarock wasn't the only glacial, it wasn't the only glacial forming environment when it formed in the world at that time, although it is very unique. We have related glacial settings all over the world, and an example of that could be the Appalachian Iron Formation in the Northwest Territories and Yukons of Canada. It was on up here, and this map shows actually at the time during the Neoproterozoic when the Konnarock and the Appalachian, they actually overlapped when they formed. So this shows us a good example of how glacial tillite was spread throughout the world at the time, and so there's probably a lot more formations like the Konnarock present. Something that ties the Appalachian Iron Formation and the Konnarock together is that they both have rounded pebble conglomerates, so similar structures, and drop stones especially. I thought this was really interesting because this makes a tie between iron formations and glacial formations, so they form at the same time in specific settings. I thought that was really interesting. And for our research, we were supposed to find some possible future research ideas. And one I thought would be to involve GIS, which is Geographical Information System software, to study soil stability and permeability over time with the Konnarock. And through that, we would basically study erosion and sedimentation rates, and that would reflect the soil stability of the outcrop over time. So this is not the Konnarock. This is an example of another study, but we would just apply that for our study. So we would use like digital elevation models or DEM models. And that would be for the outcrops of the Konnarock going along like White Top Laurel Creek, going from Green Cove Station. They're very easy and accessible, and it would provide a good example to study and look at over time. And so we would use those DEMs, and from the change in elevation and through also like the water accumulation from the creek, we could study how sedimentation rates and erosion rates affect that surface over time. Yeah. So this is what I have so far. I can't wait to learn more about it in the future, but does anyone have any questions with that?
I think it's pretty good. Is this some kind of research that maybe we could do? Or is this a real research project?
With the future research or just everything in general?
Well, the future research you just mentioned.
I believe so. I think it could be very easy, or not easy, but very accessible to do. I'm currently getting to do research with GIS with one of the professors in my department, and it's made me see how accessible digital elevation models are, just from like USGS and online, and free to download especially. I feel like we definitely could, and just run the same commands that this study used to study sedimentation rates and erosion rates over time. We would just, of course, like this digital elevation model is of a large area, so we would just have to like cut that down, which wouldn't be too bad because you wouldn't have to download as much data. But I think that'd be very applicable for BRDC to do in the area.
Do you think it's something that we could share with Dr. Mershat, Aaron?
Oh, sure. I'm sure he'd love to see it. I wish Michael was here too in his GIS work. Definitely should have invited him to join the call. I forgot to give him a call. A lot to unpack there. Can you talk a little bit more about the age? I kind of couldn't quite follow you on the, let's see, maybe the depositional environment section.
Yeah, sorry, I did talk really fast.
Okay.
I apologize. So
a huge window there.
Huge window. It actually, yeah, it's very loosely constrained. I thought it makes it super interesting. We do know that it happened in a glacial period of the Neoproterozoic. There were 5 glacial periods that would fall within that window. And we're not exactly sure, or we're not exactly sure like how exactly or when exactly the Konnarock was deposited. We do know it was within one of those glacial periods. But it's towards the end of the formation of Laurentia, during the main like mountain building events. And that is also told by the presence of archosic turbidites in the stratigraphic column. Yeah, there's a lot of like things that for the window that constrain the window, but at the same time the window is very large.
This is very large. Yeah. Okay. Great. I want to go out and get pictures of all these things now. Yeah.
My question was, did you find the drop stones locally? Or were
Oh,
those
definitely. You can see them walking along Whitetop Laurel Creek along the Virginia Creeper Trail.
Yes.
And
So
it's really awesome. I think we actually saw them this summer.
okay. I was just wondering if these were your photos that you had taken.
No, sadly, we I wish they were. They're actually in a study from D.W. Rankin. And so all of these pictures are actually from the same study from 1993. So I'm sure the landscape probably hasn't changed a whole lot. But when we took a virtual field trip out there, we definitely would have gotten a lot of images if we got to go out there. But when our teachers went out there and showed us videos, you can see a lot like on the undersides of outcrops. They've preserved really well, but most of the drop stones they all are from like the underlying units. So it's like gneiss, granite, rhyolite, things that will not or weather for a very long time. And so I'm sure they'll be like very visible if you just walk along the trail. It's very cool.
Besides the content, I think the presentation, the layout that you did is really great.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that a lot. I appreciate it. I do apologize if I flew through it. We were required to present it in 4 to 5 minutes. And so
that's great.
As soon as we started, we're just like, okay.
Maybe you can share with us a file that we could put up like a little blog on the website, maybe?
Oh, sure thing. Yeah, actually, I have a PDF version of this.
Great.
That's great. Yes. Thank you so much for letting me share this with you guys.
Yeah.
I feel very thankful to have actually known this area and know you guys to give it a lot more context too.
Cool. Good. Well, I'm sure that they gave you a good grade on this.
Oh, I don't know. We haven't got it back yet. So
All right.
We give you an A+, Megan.
Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate that so much.